The red stallion was an ever-welcome sight in Riverrun. My father counts Jonos Bracken amongst his oldest and most loyal bannermen, Catelyn Stark, on House Bracken, A Game of Thrones Chapter 28, Catelyn 5. House Bracken of Stone Hedge is one of the oldest noble families of the Riverlands, long sworn to House Tully of Riverrun since the time of Aegon's conquest. Their seat, Stone Hedge, lies along the red fork of the Trident, and from these lands they command considerable strength. Their sigil is a red stallion upon a golden field, set against brown. Though unlike many great houses, their words have not yet been recorded in the histories we have access to. The Brackens rule over broad and fertile domains, and are able to muster a force that rivals and in some cases surpasses that of their liege lords of House Tully, and in days past, various river kings. Despite their status as vassals, they have long stood as one of the most powerful of the river lords as a result. Their ancient seat of Stone Hedge lies in an area south of the Red Fork and the Inn of the Kneeling Man, and north of High Heart and Acorn Hall, with Riverrun to the west. Across the Red Fork from the north stretches the Blackwood Vale, seat of their ancient rivals of House Blackwood, whose lands face the Brackens across the river, with their long-standing feud lasting to this very day. House Bracken can trace its lineage back to the First Men, being one of a handful of riverlords to be able to do so. However, they are very much now culturally Andal. In the distant age of heroes, they counted themselves among the many kings of the Riverlands. Later, in the Age of 100 Kingdoms, Bracken rulers claimed dominion as petty kings, even extending their reach to the mouth of the Blackwater Rush for a short period of time, before their kingdom fell as fast as it rose. The history of House Bracken and Blackwood go hand in hand. It is very much a shared history, interwoven via their long and bitter feud, a feud steeped in as much pride as it is blood. By the Brackens' telling, there were once rightful kings along the Red Fork, betrayed and overthrown by their own vassals, the Blackwoods. The Blackwoods, for their part, tell a very different tale. The Brackens were no kings at all, but mere horse breeders and lesser lords who seized power through hired swords, usurping the true Blackwood king. Over time, the true nature of the events has been lost to the murky pages of history, but that has done little to dampen the feud. For a time, the Brackens and Blackwoods set aside their rivalry to stand together against the coming of the Andals, but their alliance ended in defeat at the Battle of the Bitter River. In the years that followed, their ancient feud only deepened, worsened in part by House Bracken's conversion to the faith of the Seven, while the Blackwoods kept the old gods. Old grievances festered. Among them, the Blackwood believed that the Brackens poisoned the sacred weirwood tree at Raventree Hall. Disputed lands such as Battle Valley and the village of Blackbuckle remain constant points of contention even to this very day. Though peace was declared more than once, often sealed by marriage, it never endured, and the cycle of hostility always resumed. From this tangled history came Benedict Rivers, a bastard of both houses, who would rise to become King Benedict Justman, with his descendants ruling the Riverlands for the better part of 3 centuries. In later struggles, an unnamed Bracken lord perished in a war between the Teague kings and the Storm King Arlen III Durrandon, another mark of the house's long involvement in the shifting conflicts of the Riverlands. During the rise of Harwin Hoare, King of the Iron Islands, the rivalry again proved decisive, as Lady Agnes Blackwood led the Riverlords in resistance, while Lord Lothar Bracken betrayed her cause, striking her forces from the rear. It may be that he hoped to claim the kingship of the Trident for himself, once the Storm King, Aric Durrandon, was defeated. Instead, the Riverlands fell under the rule of House Hoare. Lothar's ambitions came to a grim end, when he later rose in rebellion. Harwin had him taken and starved to death. Before the Andals came to Westeros, House Bracken ruled this river. We were kings, and the Blackwoods were our vassals, but they betrayed us and usurped the crown. Lord Jonos Bracken to Jaime Lannister, A Dance with Dragons, Chapter 48. Jaime 1. House Bracken supported House Targaryen during the Wars of Conquest and rose against King Harren the Black, grandson of Harwin Hoare. Not surprising given their poor relationship with their overlord. Yet, both the Brackens and their rivals of House Blackwood had been weakened by their own private war in the years prior to Aegon's arrival, and when the Riverlands were subdued, Aegon the Conqueror passed them over, granting the title of Lord Paramount of the Trident to Lord Edmund Tully of Riverrun. In an effort to mend the ancient feud, Queen Visenya arranged a double marriage between the two houses, but this would only be a temporary fix, as always seems the case. In the troubled reign of King Maegor the Cruel, a Sir Lyle Bracken stood among the 7 champions of the warrior's sons and was slain during the king's brutal Trial of 7 in 42 AC. A few years later, Sir Oliver Bracken, then a knight of Maegor's Kingsguard, abandoned his vow alongside Sir Raymond Mallory to support Prince Jaehaerys Targaryen. When Jaehaerys claimed the Iron Throne, he showed them mercy for their broken oaths, allowing both men to take the Black rather than face the executioner's block. Their story did not end there. In 50 AC, Oliver and Raymond helped lead a rising among the former members of the Faith Militant within the Night's Watch. This rebellion was swiftly crushed by the Northmen, and Lord Walden Stark himself put an end to it, beheading Oliver Bracken with the greatsword Ice at Rhymegate. In 112 AC, Amos Bracken fought a famed duel with Samwell Blackwood over the hand of Princess Rhaenyra Targaryen, named heir of King Viserys, though her hand ultimately went to Sir Laenor Velaryon instead. When the Dance of the Dragons later erupted, House Bracken declared for King Aegon II and the Greens. During the Battle of the Burning Mill, Sir Amos slew his old rival Samwell, only to be struck down himself soon after, reportedly by an arrow loosed by Alysanne Blackwood. In the aftermath, Sir Aegor Rivers led what remained of the Bracken forces back to Stone Hedge, though Lord Humphrey Bracken had already been taken captive by Prince Daemon Targaryen. As the war drew to its close and Aegon II began punishing those who had supported Rhaenyra, Humphrey chose to change sides, throwing his support behind her son, the future King Aegon III. During the reign of King Aegon IV Targaryen, better known as Aegon the Unworthy, a Lord Bracken rose high, serving briefly as Hand of the King. His fortunes seemed secured when his eldest daughter, Barbara Bracken, became the king's 5th mistress. Barbara was a buxom young woman with dark hair, a lively spirit, and unburdened by modesty. Though admired, she was not accounted so beautiful as Melissa Blackwood, at least by the telling of the Blackwoods and later court chroniclers. In 161 AC, during the reign of King Baelor I Targaryen, Baelor the Blessed, Barbara was sent to the Maiden Vault in the Red Keep, where the king had confined his sisters, princesses Dana, Rhaena, and Elena. Many noble families offered up their maiden daughters as companions to the princesses, in hoping of winning royal favour, and Barbara, a daughter of the Lord of Stone Hedge, was among them. When King Baelor died in 171 AC, and King Viserys II released the princesses, it was then the 16-year-old Barbara came to the attention of a young Prince Aegon Targaryen, whom quickly became enamoured of her. Upon Viserys' death in 172 AC, Aegon ascended to the throne as King Aegon IV, and raised Barbara's father to the office of Hand. He took her openly as his mistress, and she soon bore him a bastard son, Aegor Rivers, born only weeks before Queen Nerys nearly died in childbirth. Sensing opportunity, Lord Bracken began to speak openly of marrying his daughter to the king. Yet, when the Queen recovered, such talk became scandalous. The king's brother, Prince Aemon, and his only true-born son, Prince Daeron, forced Aegon to send Barbara and her child away from court, and they returned to Stone Hedge, where she raised Aegor. In time, Barbara was replaced by Melissa Blackwood, younger, fairer, and more reserved. Determined to regain the king's favour, Barbara and her father turned to her younger sister, Bethany, grooming her to supplant Melissa. Their efforts bore fruit in 177 AC, when Bethany caught Aegon's eye during his visit to Stone Hedge. But the triumph was short-lived. The following year, Bethany would be discovered in the bed of Sir Terence Toyne of of the Kingsguard, and the scandal proved fatal. Both she and her father were executed. Bitter his steel may have been, but worse was his tongue. He spilled poison into Daemon's ear, and with him came the clamouring of other knights and lords with grievances. The writings of Maester Yandel on Aegor Rivers, the world of ice and fire, the Targaryen kings Daeron II. Barba's son with King Aegon, Aegor Rivers, being half Targaryen, had purple eyes but the black hair of his mother's house. As an adult, he had a close-cropped beard, little more than a shadow on his face. He looked like a warrior, tall and muscular, but was lean and lithe, like a panther. Aegor's armour was well made but plain, grey steel with black rings. On his helm was the horsehead crest, with the horse's mane flowing behind it. His shield displayed his own personal sigil, a stallion with black dragon wings on a golden field, snorting fire, a reference to both his Targaryen and Bracken heritage. Angry all of his life, Aegor never smiled. Reportedly, he was a hard man who had little use for anything beyond war. Bittersteel was easily irritated and offended, sometimes attributed to his Bracken blood. He especially loathed his younger half-brother, Brendan Rivers, and Brendan's mother, Melissa Blackwood, who'd replaced his own mother at court. The feud only deepened, given that both Bittersteel and Bloodraven were in love with their younger half-sister, Shiera Seastar, with Shiera ultimately favouring Bloodraven. Their other half-brother, Daemon Blackfyre, agreed to wed his daughter, Calla, to Aegor. However, it's unknown if and when this marriage took place. Aegor often urged Daemon to press his own claim to the Iron Throne. He would go on to become one of House Blackfyre's biggest and most loyal supporters, carrying on the fight in successive rebellions even after the death of Daemon at the Redgrass Field. He would spend much of his life in Essos, where he would eventually form the famed sellsword company, the Golden Company. When he died at the age of 69 in 241 AC, it is said he died as he lived, with a sword in his hand and defiance upon his lips. On his deathbed, he commanded the men of the Golden Company to boil the flesh from his skull, dip it in gold, and carry it before them when they crossed the Narrow Sea to retake Westeros. The captains who have since led the Golden Company have all followed Aegor's example. According to Sir Eustace Osgrey, a Lord Bracken once intended to sail with Myrish crossbowmen to join Daemon Blackfyre and Bittersteel during the first Blackfyre Rebellion, but storms delayed his passage and he never reached the war. Old enmity between the Brackens and Blackwoods was stirred anew when Sir Otho Bracken slew Lord Quinton Blackwood at a tourney in King's Landing in 206 AC. The killing rekindled the ancient feud, and though Otho and members of House Blackwood both appeared at the tourney at Ashford Meadow 3 years later, the hatred between them remained undiminished. Sir Stephen Fossaway once considered persuading either Otho or the Blackwoods to stand with Sir Duncan the Tall in his trial of 7, but soon saw the folly in the idea. There was no hope of bringing both sides together. As Lord Bracken lay dying, Septon Stephen warned that Otho's succession would bring bloodshed, for the Blackwoods would never accept him. With the Lord's eldest son already claimed by the Great Spring Sickness, the inheritance was clear, and so too was the danger in it. Even the hand of the king, Brendan Rivers, Bloodraven, was not expected to prevent the conflict that seemed certain to follow. At the start of the main A Song of Ice and Fire book series, the current Lord Bracken is Lord Jonos Bracken. Jonas is a heavy-set man, said to be broader than Sir Jaime Lannister, though not so tall, with thick shoulders and powerful arms, his brown hair being coarse and plentiful even upon his back, and his brown eyes are often set in a scowl. He is known to be quick to anger and prideful in bearing. He often wears a brown woolen tunic embroidered with the red stallion of his house. When he arms himself for battle, he dons plate and mail, along with a grey steel great helm, crested with horsehair. He has thrice been wed and fathered 5 daughters, as well as a bastard son, Harry Rivers. Yet even this claim is disputed, for his long-term rival, Lord Titus Blackwood, cast doubt upon the boy's parentage. 3 Bracken men-at-arms ride with Lady Catelyn Stark, daughter of Lord Hoster Tully, when she seizes Tyrion Lannister at the inn at the crossroad. They accompany her on her perilous journey towards the Vale of Arryn, but all 3 are slain along the way by the mountain clansmen. In the chaos that follows the death of King Robert Baratheon, Sir Gregor Clegane descends upon the Bracken lands, burning their fields, butchering their small folk, and leaving Stone Hedge in ruins. Amid the turmoil, Lord Jonas is named among the nobles commanded by King Joffrey Baratheon to swear fealty or be declared a traitor. Jonas later comes to Riverrun after the Battle of the Camps. At the War Council, held in the Great Hall, he first urges they bend the knee to Renly Baratheon, perhaps in opposition to Lord Titus Blackwood's call to march on Harrenhal. Yet when the Great John speaks and the mood of the hall shifts, Jonas joins the other Riverlords in proclaiming Robb Stark as king in the north. He later recovers Stone Hedge from the Lannisters, but he's wounded, and his nephew Hendry is killed in the fighting. Lord Quentyn Bainford is at one point held captive by House Bracken, a sign of the shifting fortunes and rivalries of the war. Among those later said to have been slain by the Brotherhood Without Banners by Lannister forces is Harry Rivers, the bastard of Bracken. While passing through Bracken lands, Brienne of Tarth, Sir Cleos Frey and Sir Jaime Lannister come upon a grim sight at a burned inn. The bodies of the tavern women hung for consorting with Lannister soldiers. A crude sign hung above them reading, "They lay with lions." Lord Jonos Bracken is present at Riverrun when Lord Hoster Tully is laid to rest, counted among the 7 nobles who set the funeral boat aflame upon the river. After the fall of Robb Stark at the Red Wedding, Jonas bends the knee to the Iron Throne and is granted a royal pardon. Thereafter, House Bracken resumes its ancient feud in earnest, taking up arms against House Blackwood, who remain loyal to the Starks. Elsewhere, the struggles continue as the Brackens lay siege to the Blackwoods within Raventree Hall, the old feud once more descending into open warfare. Lord Titus Blackwood refuses to yield to Jonas, prolonging the siege of Raventree Hall and drawing Jaime Lannister into the dispute in hopes of settling it. Jonas presses an ambitious claim, demanding wide stretches of Blackwood land, including the east bank of Widow's Wash, and holdings such as Crossbow Ridge, Lord's Mill, Battle Valley, Blackbuckle, and the Honey Tree, among many others. Titus, however, only concedes a fraction of these demands, agreeing to wield Woodhedge, Crossbow Ridge, Blackbuckle, Lord's Mill, and Honey Tree. Jaime, seeking to bring matters to a close, imposes his own condition, commanding Jonas to send one of his daughters to King's Landing to serve Queen Regent Cersei Lannister. It is later revealed that Jonas suffered deeply from the Red Wedding, where a dozen men of his own blood are said to have been slain.